Hello, this is Susan Poss at Spartanburg Community College. I'm working with you today on systems of equations, and the ones that we're working on are going to have two variables, and in order to solve, then we're going to write two equations. And we're going to either solve by substitution or add elimination methods. So let's take this first example. These two problems that I want to work with you have to do with geometry. So the first one has to do with perimeter. It says area here, but it looks like to me that this first one is perimeter and the second one is perimeter. So let me change these to perimeter problems. And you'll remember that the way you find the perimeter is you sum up or you add the lengths of the sides of whatever shape it is that you're working on. In this first problem, I'm working with a square and a regular hexagon. And it defines here that a regular hexagon is a six-sided figure with sides of equal length. One side of the square is 17 feet longer than a side of the hexagon, and the two figures have the same perimeter. What are the lengths of the sides? So as we've talked about before, you might want to go here to this last part of the problem and see what you're looking for. We're looking for the lengths of the sides of each figure. And I think I will use S for the length of the side of a square. And I think I will use H for the length of a side of a hexagon. So let me do a little tiny sketch out here. Here's the square. Of course, you know squares got four right angles and all four sides are equal in length, and I'm going to call each of those S. And I'm going to try to sketch off a regular hexagon. Six-sided, all sides the same length, and each of these lengths we're going to call H. Okay, so we've got our sketches made, we've got our variables identified. Now let's go back and see if we can get some equations. And I think I see some information here that might be helpful. One side of the square is 17 feet longer than a side of the hexagon. So I'm going to use that little sentence right there to get equation number one. One side of the square is 17 feet longer than a side of the hexagon. So longer than here means I'm going to add 17 feet to the side of the hexagon, and it will equal the length of the side of the square. So there's equation number one. And the second equation, let me go back and read again. The two figures have the same perimeter. All right, so that means their perimeters are equal. So how do you find the perimeter of a square? Well, the perimeter of a square is S plus S plus S plus S, or 4S, and the perimeter of the hexagon is H plus H plus H, of course 6 times, or 6 times this length H. So the perimeter on the square is 4 times S, and the perimeter on the hexagon is 6 times H, and this tells me that those two things are the same. So I'm setting those two things equal to each other. So now I've got my two variables and my two equations, so I've got a system of equations here. And I think this one lends itself to substitution. It already tells me that the side of the square is equal to 17 plus H, so I can take that information and substitute it into equation number 2. So here's equation number 2. I'm removing the letter S for the length of the side, and I'm replacing it with this equivalent value for S, which is 17 plus H. All right, so now let me do a little bit of arithmetic. This is 68. I'm distributing here. Plus 4h equals 6h. I think what I'd like to do is subtract this 4h from both sides. So 68 is equal to 2h. And it looks like the length of the side of the hexagon is equal to 34. And then I want to go back and find s, so I'm going to go back to equation number 1 and do a quick little back substitution. S is equal to 17 plus h, or in this case we found h to be 34. So it looks like s is equal to 51. Okay, so I've got my two answers. The length of the hexagon side is 34. The length of the side of the square is 17 more than that, or 51. So let's do a quick check and see if their perimeters are equal. So 4 times 51 would be the perimeter of the square, which is 204. And 6 times 34, which is the side of the hexagon, gives me 204. And that looks good because it said at the beginning that these two perimeters were equal. So I've done a little quick check here to make sure that my answers are correct. So let's do one more and then we'll stop with the perimeter problems. This one is a rectangle problem. The length of a rectangle is 4 feet more than the width. If the perimeter is 56 feet, what are the length and the width? So again, I'm going here to the end to see what I'm looking for. So W is the width, L is the length. Anytime I have geometry, it usually helps me to make a sketch. So you know that a rectangle has 4 90-degree angles in it. Here's the length, and here's the width. Here's the length, and here's the width. All right, so let's see. I think my first sentence is going to give me an equation. The length of a rectangle is, the length of a rectangle is 4 feet more than the width. So there's your first equation, just translating words into symbols. If the perimeter is 56 feet, so let's see, this is going to be my second equation. The perimeter is 56 feet. So how do you find the perimeter of a rectangle? Well, the perimeter is the sum of all 4 side lengths. And of course, the abbreviated, simplified version of this is 2L plus 2W is the perimeter of the rectangle. So I'm going to take that and let that be my equation. 2L plus 2W is equal to the perimeter, which is 56. So there are my two equations in two variables. There's my system. First one's already solved explicitly for L, so I'm going to do a quick little substitution technique here. Take equation number 2. And remove the letter L and replace it with this 4 plus W, which is the equivalent for the letter L. So doing a quick little distribution here. Adding the like terms, 2W and 2W. Subtracting 8 and dividing by 4. The width is 12. So I've got my first answer. It looks like the width is 12. 12 feet. We should label it when they give me units. I always try to label. The width is 12 feet, and then we'll go back up here to equation number 1, which says the length is equal to 4 plus the width. So if the width is 12, then the length has to be 16 feet. And as a quick check, this perimeter is supposed to be 56. So if I do twice the length and twice the width, does that bring me back to 56 for the perimeter? And it does. So a quick way to check it is to go back and substitute into both equations. All right, so that's a good place to stop our work with perimeter and systems of equations.